And then it takes a second.
Yay!
It says you're live and recording.
Awesome.
So welcome everyone who is here to hear from Hailey today. My name is Shannon Siriano Greenwood, and if you could just pop a message in the chat so that we know everyone is here and that you can hear us, so you can just say hello or hi.
Yeah, I want to know where people are located. Where are you guys from?
You can type in where you are. You can type in what's wrong with your hair today, Shannon, but I have no answer for that. Oh, yay, a lot of names I recognize and some new ones too. Excellent. Richmond, Virginia, represent.
Nice.
Awesome. Ooh, Scotland. Lancaster.
I think that's Amanda. Yeah.
Do you know Amanda?
Yes, I do. Oh.
Well, I love it. Well, welcome so much. We are going to dive in here pretty quickly. I just wanted to do an introduction of Hailey. And Hailey, thank you again so much for being here. I feel very lucky that we just kind of, I don't know, discovered you in this last couple of weeks of us being on the internet. But it was so cool that you came to one of our events. And then, of course, what happens when people come to our events, just so everybody knows this, then I Instagram stalk you, and then I get on your website, and then I read all your bio, and I look at your LinkedIn. So if your LinkedIn's not updated, no, just kidding. I was just obviously very interested and intrigued by your work. You are a coach, you work with small businesses, and I am a small business, so obviously a little close to home for me. And I love your brand, Brain Space Optimized. Definitely, clearly something that I would like to have. I feel like the work that you're doing is so important and even more relevant now probably than always, not that it's not always relevant. But we are finding ourselves with lots of conflicting messages and feelings and thoughts and emotions. And so finding some semblance of clarity, I think, is valuable no matter what you do for a living, whether you are an entrepreneur or you have a traditional employer, having brain space is just essential. So I feel very lucky that I just emailed Hailey and she said yes. And so now she's here with us to walk us through, I guess, kind of your signature exercise and to help us find some peace and clarity over the next 45 to an hour. So I'm going to turn it over to Hailey and let her introduce herself. And then I just wanted to kind of make like I don't know what it's called, like housekeeping announcements. Essentially, and also an apology. I'm managing the technology today, so it may not be the most seamless, beautiful situation you've ever experienced, but it's going to work. I'm going to pop myself off the camera and sound. Hailey's going to go through a presentation, and then she's going to stop at some points that she may ask people to share. And if you feel comfortable, you can even go on the screen with her. So I encourage you to take advantage of this. There's a coach among us willing to coach us. So I will hand it over to you, Hailey. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shannon. This is really fun, and I love talking about this topic and presenting on this and just having lots of conversations around it. So I'm going to get my slides up here. And let's get presenting. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you guys can see me and see my slides at this point. So what we're talking about today is the 1 year from now vision. And Shannon was right. This is the key exercise that I do with people when they come into my practice. When we first start talking about our work together, this is where I start with them. And so we're going to talk about what it is and how to do it. And if you don't already have a pen and some paper, get some scratch paper, get some stuff, because this is very much a interactive work section. Okay. So if you have comments during this presentation or while I'm talking, put them in the comments and maybe put, a star next to it or something so Shannon knows it's a question to be asked. And we'll get to questions at the end. But yeah, we're going to walk through this and actually do the exercise. So I love to start with what you're going to get out of this, because giving anybody an hour of your time is a big deal. And so I'm thankful that you're giving me an hour of your time. And I want you to know that what we're putting together here, what we're going to do in this hour is give you the tools that you need to do some foundational thought work. It's kind of like I always think about those quest movies, or like, I don't know, a video game like Zelda, where you're just like collecting tools in your bag so that you can pull them out later. That's what we're doing here. So all of my work is predicated on this thought that we are always creating our future. Always. Whether or not you're doing it on purpose is a different thing. But every day, in the actions that you take, in what you do and what you decide, you're building a future for yourself. So what we're doing right now is deciding to build a future deliberately. We're doing this on purpose this time, instead of maybe letting things happen to you. I know right now, lots of people are feeling uneasy and still kind of like mourning all of the changes that are happening. And I want you to know that that's okay. Like, you're allowed to feel that way. It's perfectly normal, and like there's room for that. And there's also room if you are ready to be thinking about what you want next. Both of those things can exist at the same time, and that's fine. It's perfectly okay. So what I'm asking you to do today is, keep the morning feeling kind of there, but also we're really going to exercise and expand on this visioning part, like this, your visioning muscle in your brain, and really expand on this work. To give you an idea about me, as Shannon said, my name is Hailey Thomas, and I am a business coach for online entrepreneurs. I started my business several years ago as a virtual assistant, and then I became a virtual project manager, and then I became a virtual operations manager for a couple clients. And so I have seen inside of dozens of businesses at this point in time. Alongside of that, I've created 2 digital products, one that I built out and sold. And then I have another brand called Podcast Assist that I work on right now. I'm saying all these things not to brag, but to tell you that this concept has come about not from just like me like journaling in my bedroom, but from being with clients and asking these questions and doing these things. So I've spoken at TEDx, and I'm on podcasts and do all these things around concepts that are real and like living in the people that I work with. I live in central Illinois in a town called Normal. Those pictures, there's one below of my very unhelpful coworker, Crypto, my dog, who thinks he's a lap dog but weighs 110 pounds. And then those 2 handsome gentlemen are my husband, Caleb, and my son, Sam, on our trip to our last international trip, which was to Scotland, to see a dear friend of ours there. So we like to travel as a family. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about the 1 year from now concept, okay? The 1 year from now vision is a target. It's a bullseye, and it's one that you can create for yourself. And really what we're doing by having that vision and then answering the questions that come from it is creating self-efficacy in yourself, like creating self-trust for yourself, building that up and growing in that. And by doing that, you're going to realize you're going to be like marching towards the vision that you're creating anyway by building this out. So journal, talk about it, keep working on this vision. It's like a tool, a piece that you can use to build out what it is you want for your work and want for yourself in the future. It's also a how-to guide. One of the most remarkable things that I've learned as a coach is your brain is constantly sending you thoughts across your head, right? All the time, your brain is sending you all sorts of, some very useful and mostly some that are not useful, just thought all day long, all the time. What you're doing when you're focusing this on a vision or have a target or a bullseye is forcing your brain to produce answers for you and solutions for you, and you're giving it direction. So that's really what this is training your thoughts and giving your brain direction so that it will solve problems for you and go to work for you, instead of just letting it like flit answers across your brain. I think of it as like the ticker tape on a news channel, how that just kind of like scrolls. If you let it just go, your brain will just go on all sorts of things in all sorts of directions. So this is a focusing exercise and gives your brain something to do. And then the concept itself, you'll see there's, a dozen questions we can ask off of this concept that will allow you to continue to ask questions and give you, it's kind of like a multi-purpose tool, like a Swiss Army knife. So you can ask lots of questions off of it. And so it's very useful in that way. So I'm going to, start my timer so I don't go too over time on this. But what we're going to do, this is where your pen and paper come in handy, is build out your own 1 year from now vision. So it's super important that you see what comes to mind first and just follow it. I think it's challenging. It's more challenging to do this work if you're constantly judging your answers and judging yourself. So just see what comes up and write it down. Okay. I want you to be as imaginative or as descriptive as you can about what you see when I give you some of these prompts, and write those down. And don't worry if for some of the prompts you don't have any answers. It's okay if you're like, oh, I don't know. Just write down what you think anyway. Just write it down. All right. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes. We're going to do this all together. We don't need to have anybody on yet, but we'll do this together, working through this. And then after this, Shannon, we're going to get somebody on. So if you want to now, or if you want to do a little bit of this journaling first and then get on, raise your hand or let Shannon know in some way if you want to come on, and then I'll kind of coach you through building out your 1 year now vision specifically. But for now, we're going to do this all together. So everybody take a deep breath and get your pen out. And I'm just going to ask several questions and just write down what comes to mind. So what do you envision for yourself and your business 1 year from now? What services do you offer? What do people come to you for? What does your team look like? Who do you work with? And I want you to think about the fact that it's April 14th, 2021. It's early spring. It may be, hot or cold where you are, depending on where you live. But really think about, what is it like in April for you, climate-wise. And it's a Tuesday. What are you doing on that Tuesday? What is your day like? What are you doing that day? Imagine that you're about to go to lunch. You're wrapping things up. You're about to go to lunch. What were you just working on that morning? What were you just finishing? And what are the plans for the rest of your day? What else are you doing today? I want you to take a minute and think about what your workspace looks like. What does your desk look like? If you have a home office, what is it like? Now that you have some of those pieces in place, I want you to take a minute and think about how you feel right now. So take one step back from the things you just wrote or, you have to take a step back, but think about the things that you just wrote, about that vision, about what you just built out in your mind's eye. How do you feel about it? I want you to write 3 feelings that you feel about it. It could be hopeful or happy or content or courageous, or could feel excited or ambitious. Write down 3 ways or 3 words about how you feel. Okay. That was a little quick, and I understand that. Typically, when I work through this exercise with someone, like, we spend probably 10 minutes talking about it. And you don't have to spend 10 minutes now, but I'd like to bring somebody on to give it a try and see. You can hear some of the other questions that I ask them, or how I help them shape out this world. But it's important that what you're building out is something that you feel connected to in some way, right? Like, this isn't anyone else's dream, it's just what you think. And so here I'm gonna exit that out.
Can you hear me, Hailey?
I can.
Okay. I was going to invite Polly. She is connecting right now. So she's going to come up. I'll let you two chat. And then if anyone else is interested in sharing after this, just pop a note in the chat and I will add you next. All right. Farewell, friends.
Yes.
Hi,
Hey, Polly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I'm going to walk through some of those same questions, but I want you to give me what your answers are for this. And like I've been saying, like, don't judge yourself. Just tell me what you're thinking and what you see. So what do you envision for your work and for yourself a year from now?
So for my work in myself a year from now, I'd like to be doing user experience research. Is what I went to school for. Ideally a remote job, so I can work from anywhere and have time to engage with friends and family.
What does your business look like? Like, what services are you offering at that point?
So I'm someone with works a traditional job, but what I offer is the research, I mentor, leadership, visioning, education.
Okay, so you envision yourself kind of coming alongside these other companies to help them work on their projects. Like, you could be the point person for UX stuff for them. Yeah. If you imagine that it's Tuesday, early spring, what did you're about to, wrap up for lunch today. What did you do this morning?
So in the morning, did my yoga and breathing to get the day started, worked on, delivered some insights from research work to clients, and then took a walk at lunch.
What else do you have on for the rest of today?
The rest is meet with the rest of the team and check in where they're at. Meet with some additional clients for insights, and then use the last bit of the workday to set the plan for the next day, and then go for a walk and meet some friends for dinner.
Tell me a little bit about your workspace or your setup. What does that look like?
It's an open space, so I have a section with a standing desk, so I can sit or stand as needed. By the windows, I have lots of sunlight, and then a laptop headset for what I need to conduct my work, and a notebook, my passion planner.
Nice. When you think of this vision for yourself, right, you're really being this super valuable resource for clients. There's a lot of movement in your day, like a lot of walking and yoga. There is, meeting with friends, and you have this team. So you've got this like community built around you. How do you feel about that vision? Like, what are the feelings that come to mind?
So my first was achievable, but then distant. So like I have some anxiety around it. And then what was the last one I put? And then overarching feeling I have right now is fatalistic
I
about
love that so much.
everything. So that's just like undercurrent to everything I feel right now.
Sure. No, that's completely legitimate. I want you to go to that space. So it's, at least for me, it's noon, Tuesday, 2021. Go to that space. You just finished getting off of like the dopest client call. They're so excited about working with you. They're just complimenting you up, down, and sideways. You're about to hang up with them and go out for your walk. What are the 3 feelings that you feel in that space?
Hopeful, excited, and I guess always a little anxious because it's something new.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, always living up to the promise.
If you had been doing this successfully for 6 months, do you think you would feel similarly to that, or a little bit, or different? I mean, you could be like, I will always feel like this because that's just how I feel about things.
Yeah, I think I always have just that kind of imposter syndrome. So I always have that, like my knee-jerk reaction is I always have that underlying anxiety that I then have to kind of work my way back out of like, I've done this before. I have plenty of evidence that this is that I can do this, but that's just always my knee-jerk first.
Yeah.
That anxiety just always first comes up.
So even when things are working, that's just a part of how you feel.
Yeah, like as I now self-identify in front, like I have that worst case scenario Wanda part of me that's always like, what first, like, how could this all go wrong, and then look at how it's going to go right.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's legitimate. So I think what I want you to take away from this piece are a few things, and when we get back to the slides, we'll talk about exactly how you can apply this. But I think the pieces that I want you to hold on to are especially those like hopeful, excited, the achievable ones. Those are going to be the feelings that you're going to have to work to like hold on to, because the like fatalistic or like, oh, the other shoe's going to drop all the time. Like, you don't have to practice that. That will be there. In fact, we want to give less attention to those feelings. But I think the feelings that I want you to like capture are like feeling hopeful, and this is achievable, and excited about the work that you're doing. I want you, my question for you, I guess, when you're especially feeling excited about your work, what are the thoughts that you're thinking that makes you feel excited?
That ultimately the outcome of what I do is going to help someone or improve someone's life. Like that's kind of been one of the driving forces of my career and kind of what I do. Like the thing I feel best about is at the end of the day, if I can identify in some way, even if I don't see it directly, of just knowing that something's made something better.
Yeah. So that's that. I think a couple things, but we've got your vision about what we want your life to look like. We've got some feelings that you can identify with, but the piece off of that we just built out was like, here are the thoughts that I need to be thinking about to create those feelings. So really what we're doing is giving you something, not to be a giant nerd, everybody, but I'm a Harry Potter fan. And so like we're giving you the key to conjuring up that vision or to bringing it back all the time is those thoughts that lead to those feelings. And you'll know if you're in a good spot with it, because you'll be able to, like, if you're not feeling hopeful or excited or like this is achievable, then like you're not quite in the right spot with it. But you have the thoughts now and you have the feelings that lead you back to what your vision is. Okay, so hold on to that, and we're going to talk about what to do with it in a second. But thank you so much for volunteering.
No worries.
And
thank you. This was super helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good. All right, Shannon, I don't know how to move Polly around, so I need you to come back. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And we're going to talk about what we all can do with that. Okay. Present. All right, so I'll let Shannon interrupt me if you guys can't see this, but once you have the vision, and thank you again, Polly, so much for volunteering, but once you have this vision, and I love that it was like simple, she didn't think a ton about it, but it's what just came up, like it's just what she sees. And so you never have to feel like you are forcing your way into somebody else's vision for you, because you can just follow the path that your brain has already kind of created, like the vision your brain has already created for you. So once we have the vision, we also know what feelings and thoughts prompt that vision to come back, or prompt, that vision for you. So what you can do now with that vision is work backwards about a bunch of the decisions that you have in your life currently. This is my favorite part, and it's so good. But there are 4 areas that you can look at specifically, or that I work with my clients on. The first one is about yourself, is about you. And the first question you can ask in that category is, that person, who is she? Who are they? What kind of traits do they have? What kind of characteristics do they have? So we just talked about with Polly, like that person is hopeful and excited and things are achievable for them. That person also probably has a little bit of like underlying anxiety, but that person also does a really great job of managing that. You can kind of contrast that with what you currently are like. What are your current characteristics? How do you currently, who are you currently? And you can kind of have those lists side by side, and between them kind of match things up and come up with what kind of like character development you want to do or you want to focus on. I know for a lot of people, particularly leaders, they want to learn how to make decisions more quickly, or want to be more decisive, or a little bit more adventurous, or they want to try to be better at taking risks. That's what they see in a future version of themselves, and they're not great at that now. So now you have a list of things between the two of where you can kind of develop as an individual. And I love that so much, because it gives you a plan instead of just saying, I want to be a better person. That doesn't mean anything. That is not a goal to work towards. It's not anything. But if you say, I specifically want to work on being more generous, more thoughtful with people, and more decisive, great. Those are things that you can measure and look at. Similarly with your to-do lists. So I know we've all got to-do lists to the freaking moon. But if you think about yourself a year from now, that person, that woman, what on your to-do list would she get rid of altogether? What on your to-do list would she be like, oh, this needs to go to the top of the freaking list? What on your to-do list isn't even there that she would be like, we need to get this put on here somewhere, right? Like you can look at your current list based off of that version of yourself there, okay? What do I need to learn is another question. So this is more skill specific, but what do you need to learn in terms of what your business needs, or like hard skills, I guess. So Polly was talking about, she mentioned having a team. Well, if she's never managed a team before, then she probably needs to learn some skills around team management and delegation. If there are any tools in particular that she wants to be able to work with her team easily and remotely. So there's probably some project management tools, or a tool that she can choose to learn and get into now, so it's less painful when she brings people on. Think about the hard skills that you need to learn to close the gap. And then your business in general, this is probably my favorite question. If you go into the place where you are this future version of yourself, the 1 year from now version of yourself, and you think about the problems from there, think about the problems you're currently experiencing, the, any frustrating decisions that you need to make, or decisions that seem very big and overwhelming and scary. How should I pivot? Should I hire this person? Should I fire this person? What do I need? How would that person make that decision? If you're really in that place, which is why we talked about the thoughts and the feelings and being able to conjure up that vision, if you're in that place and with those feelings, I feel like decision-making becomes so much easier and so much clearer from that place, and trying to make them from where you are now. Make them from where you want to be and make those decisions backwards, if that makes sense. So I will say you don't need to do all of this all at once. It's actually probably a bad idea to do all of this all at once. But every month, maybe you work through these questions and work with your vision, or every week, if you're working with a coach or something like that, work through, make a plan for how you want to develop as an individual and develop your business. And as you're making those plans and as you're doing those things, like, you become that person. That's how you become the 1 year from now version of yourself, is by prioritizing this work and thinking about who you need to become and what you need to do and what you need to learn and what decisions you need to make. And this gives you just a super practical way to do that. So I wanted to bring up a couple of other cool things you can do with your 1 year from now vision. One is ask yourself, how did I get here? So if you pretend that where you are now in April 14th of 2020, and ask yourself, you don't have to pretend you're here because we are here, but ask yourself, how did I get here? What decisions did I make a year ago that got me to where I am? I love this question so much because it creates both responsibility and agency. I think sometimes, especially women, get caught up in, so-and-so had me on their podcast and that's how my business blew up, or this person wrote about me, or that client referred me. And, so it's really, they did that thing and I didn't really do the thing to get what I have now. But that's just giving away your ability to create other things for yourself. Creating your future is going to feel really challenging if you haven't thought about how you've been intentional about creating where you are now. So what you can ask yourself, in the same vein of the 1 year from now vision, is working it backwards. How did you get here to where you are now, for the things that you love, for the parts of your business that you're so proud of? How did you get here? And you will realize you have so much agency and responsibility in the best way, because you can create whatever you want after that because you're capable of it. I think it also works for things that maybe you have now that you don't really want. Think about what you were doing a year ago and the decisions you made a year ago that kind of got you to where you are, for stuff you're not super glad for, which is fine. Because again, when you know how to create things, you can just switch it out for something you do like, or something else, another behavior that you like. The second thing you can do with this is come up with some more practical plans, like business planning. So if you're in that space of the future you, a year from now you can ask yourself, like, I love to pretend that you're being interviewed on a podcast, and the podcast host is talking about all the awesome things that you did this past year, and it's 2021, and this is all the stuff you did in 2020, and it was so great. And they ask you, how did you get here? What would you say to them? Just see what comes out of your mouth. Like, just see what answers come out of your mouth. And you'll be surprised at how your brain will provide you with answers. And maybe not like specific, very detailed things, but they'll provide you with answers for how you grew to X, Y, and Z, or how you did 1, 2, 3. Your brain has answers, and you should let it answer and see what it comes up with. And then the third thing you can do, which I think is really applicable, not just to business, but to all the decisions that you make with your kids, with your spouses, for me in particular, I'm working on my eating habits. So with food, future Hailey, 1 year from now Hailey, like, what would she do in this particular instance? What decision would she make? What would she choose right now? What would she pick? And I'm not going to lie and say, like, it always works perfectly and I always do what the future me wants, because that's not reality. But it's so helpful as a check-in to ask yourself first, and then go and read a blog or ask a friend or whatever. But like, ask yourself first. You'll be so surprised at what your brain comes up with. Okay, so let's talk about troubleshooting, because if you're not used to working through this in this particular way, or making your brain give you answers, what's going to happen is, and this might have happened for some of you during that exercise when we all did it together, your brain will give you confusion. It will offer you up, I don't know, and I'm not sure, but what about this? And that can't really happen because this thing with the kids and blah, blah. Like, remember, unless you train it, that is your brain's go-to. It is so remarkable to me that our brains are so good at conserving energy. Like they're not trying to create new pathways. Its job is to conserve energy so that it can, keep you safe from tigers and whatnot. But your brain's job is to conserve energy. And it does that by just banking off of the past. Like just based off of the past, this is what's going to happen in the future. Instead of looking at the future and working backwards, unless you are very poignant about asking it to do so. So one of the big problems with this, or one of the things that comes up, is that I don't know. I don't know what I see. And it typically comes up in these 3 places, but it'll come up in a lot of places. But whenever you're thinking like, I don't know what the vision is, I'd say give it time and go little by little. So it's akin to having like a lantern and going into a dark room. You can't see the whole room, especially if this is your first time ever being in this room. You can't see the whole thing, and that's fine. But you can kind of work your way around the edges and see like, okay, well, here's the edge of a table. Yep, that's a table. And here's a chair. And okay, there's a chair. Just follow the prompts and kind of work your way around the room until you get this picture of what your life is like. But just go slow and take it little by little, and know that your brain is like trying its hardest to thwart you with that decision. So you have to kind of stay focused and like coerce it a little bit to move around that room. Working backwards, going, or even just, being in 2020 and looking at 2018, your brain might say, I don't know how I got here. Stuff just happened. If you're not practiced in thinking about the past, of course your brain is going to offer you this that you don't know. But one of the ways you can remind yourself that you do know is to write down specifics. If you use Google Calendar, go look at what your calendar was on April 14th of 2019. Go look at what you did that day, and then kind of step out and look at what the month was like and what were you doing that quarter? What decisions did you make that quarter? Start to create that picture. So your brain, you can tell your brain back like, no, we know what we're doing, because we can go look it up and see, oh yeah, and this happened, and I made this decision to do this thing. We know, okay? And once you start serving your brain up those answers, it will, kind of get with the picture after a minute. But write down specifics and then fill in the picture, and that'll help when you think about how you got to where you are currently today, right now. And then the last part is, in the future, like, I don't know how I would do it. I'm not sure. I don't know how I would do it. I think, again, as I've been saying this whole time, if this is your first time, or one of the first times you're really asking your brain to create new pathways and to think differently, like some of us who are very like passionate and strong-willed individuals, like your brains are going to be some of the most challenging to kind of fight back against, because it's going to be very persistent that like, I just don't know. If I knew, I'd be doing it. I just don't know. Okay, relax. The question that I ask over and over again with clients is, but what if you did know? Like, even if, I don't know, the answer could be right or wrong. Like, what do I think? What if I did know? I'll give you an example. I was just speaking with a client, I think it was last week, we were talking, and she's a voice actor, and we were talking about her marketing plan for the year. So we had her do her vision, and she told me some things about what her home office looks like and what she can do. And I said, okay. I asked her the question about, being a podcast guest, and how did you create that? And her first words were, oh, I don't know. And I said, okay, but what if you did know? How did you do it? Well, I'm just not sure. And I said, okay, what if you were sure? How would you do it? And at that point, she was probably getting pretty annoyed, but she said, well, I know most of my work, will come from referrals. So I probably have a really good referral setup. And I know, like, I want to rely less on this marketplace that I use now. And people come to me because, I'm really good at working remotely already, which is, something a little bit unusual in this space. And, I'm the perfect person for X, Y, and Z type of projects. And, I would talk directly to creative directors about X, Y, and Z. And so I said, hey, guess what? We just created your marketing plan. Like, we just found focus. Your brain just created that focus by us asking it to do so. Our brains are so powerful, but we have to kind of focus them and not necessarily let them off the hook when it gets uncomfortable. And again, don't worry about having all the right answers all the time, but just if you did know, well, what would you do? If you did know, how would you build it? So these are some ways to troubleshoot that I don't know. Go slow, write down specifics, and be persistent with your brain. I don't mean, I would just point this out, I don't mean be mean and beat yourself up if you don't know the answers, but like think on it. Ask yourself the question repeatedly. Ask your question while you're walking or taking a shower, because that's when my brain is like, oh, I do know. Oh, I can figure that out. You know, ask yourself before you go to sleep and see what you write out in the morning when you're journaling. Okay, so be persistent and gentle with yourself. So you've got your vision. You know what thought and feelings can conjure up that vision for you so you can get into that place. You've got the questions that you can ask yourself and the areas that you can look at specifically to know what to do, like what areas to work on to get to your vision. You know some other fun extra questions you can ask to practice and create self-efficacy. And you know what to do when your brain says, oh, I don't know. So what do you do now? If you notice, this is the same slide that we started off with. This is a bullseye. Your 1 year from now vision is a target. It's a how-to guide. And you're going to have a vision and then create a plan from it and work out that plan. And then you're going to have, do some more vision work and work out that plan and do some more vision work and work out that plan. It's just this kind of ongoing loop. But this is how you bring a vision into fruition. Visioning always seems very abstract and very out there, like that's a thing that's way out there in the future. But this is how you bring it in to focus and actually work on it. And you can use this tool not just to get your vision, but also to help work your brain so that you're deliberate about creating what it is that you want. So you have your tools now, and now you can build purposefully what it is you want in the future. If you try this exercise and are working on it, I am on Instagram. I'm new to the gram. But you can Instagram me. I'm at Brainspace Optimized or DM me and let me know like, hey, this worked really well, or this did not work at all, Hailey, how dare you? And I can maybe help you troubleshoot it. You can also shoot me an email. I'm Hailey@brainspaceoptimized.com. So I will exit this out.
Yay! Can we ask questions now?
Yes, all the questions. Let's go.
So I have a couple, and then I wanted to invite anyone that has other questions, or if they have a piece that they got stuck on, that they can work through that with you. My first question is, does the time matter? Like, why a year from now? Because like you were saying, since it's a loop and you kind of like see the vision and then work towards it, why do you start with a year plan?
Yeah, so I think the process visioning to working to create an action plan, people aren't practiced at that yet. And I feel like 5 years from now or 10 years from now is so far. And especially when you work online, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Do you hear feedback? Oh, okay, yeah. So I don't know what I'm gonna do 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I have no idea what the online landscape is gonna be. And so to me, a year is far enough that you have some room for like dreaming and have some room for it's far enough away, but it's close enough that it becomes actionable. So that's just what I landed on and what I found to be the most practical, like if we're going back to making a practical version of visioning. So I picked it. Honestly, there's no like special thing about it. I picked it.
Love it. I think for me personally, I love doing exercises like this, but it is really hard for me to think that far ahead. I think 10 years worth of things are going to happen in a year. So I think mine is still a 10-year plan, but I think I'm going to do it. Delinda has a question. She says, do you have a go-to hype up routine for when you're feeling doubtful about yourself or your talent?
Yes, I do. So this is, I don't know that it's like hype up so much as just what I've learned to be doing that helps me get me out of that energy, because it's very difficult to like create or work when you're in that space. So what I actually do is just for like 5 minutes do a thought download or like a brain dump, and I let out, instead of like ignoring it, like just let it out. Like, I suck today. Like, this isn't going right. This thing is broken. I hate this. Like, you just like let it out, let it happen. And like kind of be okay with the fact that like that's just how you feel right now, and that's fine. You're allowed. You're totally allowed. So I brain dump, and then I ask myself like, what else is true? So like, even though I feel really crappy about how this project came out, they still really like me, and I did learn this other thing. And so you kind of like, instead of trying to just like get over it and shake yourself, you can kind of walk yourself from negative to neutral and then to maybe feeling better. So it's not super hype at all. It's the opposite of that. It's a lot of like writing, or you can do the same thing when you're talking to somebody about it. But that's what I do when I notice I'm in this space of like, this is painful and anxious and frustrating. Great, feel that way, and then slowly move your thoughts to neutral, and then move your thoughts to positive.
I have one more recommendation for Jalinda, and that is call me and I will hype you up, because you are an amazing, brilliant, exceptional talent of a human being, and I will be happy to hype you anytime you are in that space. For real. We have a question from Sophia, who says, how do you envision, how do you create this vision in a time like now that's full of uncertainty?
Yeah, that is a great question. So this is for me, I'll just tell you like for me, myself, and then what I'm seeing kind of with clients. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and I'm not sure what's going to happen a year from now. The thing that I feel like I control is how I feel. And to be honest, if I think about it, I do know what I want a year from now. So regardless of like the climate, like I know what I want. And so the how might be different necessarily for how it comes about. But I know, especially during this time, I want to make sure that my business is safeguarded against this. So like, I know I need to have like get my savings up in the next year, or if I'm pivoting altogether, I need a plan to work with an industry that is in this way kind of recession proof, or like make the move to remote. I know Shannon's been working on that and working hard, and it doesn't feel great, but also you're creating this vision where you're safeguarded in some ways against the variation of this that happens again. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and I don't want to like knock that or say that isn't true. But I also feel like you can kind of go to a place in yourself. I think even with the uncertainty, we all still kind of know, maybe not exactly how it's going to happen, but what it is you want for yourself and what that needs to look like for you and your family. You don't have to solve all of the world's problems. Like, you don't have to figure out what exactly it's going to mean for the entire country and the world and all of the health organizations. But, starting small and just seeing what does come up and being fine with what comes up. I think the other thing is, if I'm just being super honest, like I am a 3, an Enneagram 3, and we are highly adaptable and highly like, okay, great. Well, let's just do the next thing. Like, let's just plan it and keep it rolling. And so I think it is easier for me than it might be for some people. So like, full disclosure, if you're not fully here and ready to do this work, like that's fine. Like you don't have to be. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that. I know it's easier. Like my husband is not doing any sort of visioning work right now because that's more painful for him or more challenging for him to kind of switch over. I think the other thing, and sorry, this is a very long answer, but the other question I've been asking myself is, what if this is the new normal? Like, if this is the new normal, what else, like, what would I build in the new normal? What would I build here? And like, whenever I say that, my body instantly goes like, like a level of dread. But I think also it kind of gives my brain like, do the dread, get it out. Okay. let's just say this is the new normal. Life is still going to happen. So what do you want to happen in this new version of normal? What are your thoughts, Shannon?
I love that, the whole thing, because nobody knows what's going on, but we never did. Like, there's definitely the lack of control and lack of, I guess just that lack of control. We always had this lack of control. Right now, it's just more apparent than it usually is when we have our busyness to numb from it. But I would say, one of the prompts is asking the question, how do you want to feel? And how do you want to feel does not have to be connected to circumstance. And I think that's what's so important about this visioning work. The vision isn't to create some drama for yourself that's this new thing that you have to achieve, right? That wasn't what I was getting from the exercise, at least. The vision was to find some semblance of clarity of what it is that you want, how you want to feel, how you want to be supported, and how you want to support others, which doesn't necessarily have to be a business or a job or any of those other things. It's just, what do you want to be different than it is right now, without having to put the pressure on yourself of like, now how do I do it? At least that's how I was interpreting the exercise. And so I'll just share kind of some of the things that came up for me. And I know this about myself, and it's funny because it's coming even more clear right now, but I love to work with a team. Like, I am not a solopreneur by any stretch of the imagination. And although I'm okay working remote, although not as much as I have been, but I'm okay working remote, like, collaboration and working with other people is so important to me. And that came up in like multiple prompts. Like, it came up with like, how do I want to work? It came up with my workspace. It came up to like, I want to feel supported. I mean, that's just such a true thing for me. So I like this exercise for that reason too, of like, so maybe in your vision, your desk is very spacious. And I think Polly mentioned like, there's a window and there's light and there's room. Like, that doesn't mean she needs to like go redesign her office right now necessarily. I mean, maybe, but she's in a big loft, so I think she has big, nice windows there. But it also just means like, I need space, I need light, I need whatever it is that I'm feeling this, and I need more of this. And and I love the like detective work through the vision too. It's not just about literally, I had a chai latte in my vision and now I need to go get one, which is actually a true statement for me. But that's not what it's about. It's about, like treats for myself that like make me feel like I'm not having to like, feel restricted in some way, that I get to enjoy the pleasantries of life, which for me is a chai latte.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. I mean, that honestly, this was why I was so excited to do this work with you during this uncertainty, because I feel like what you do is help uncertain people find some semblance of clarity. And that applies regardless of what is going on in the economy, in the environment in which we are. There's always space, right, in here. If you create it for yourself. I love it. I love this stuff.
Exactly right.
Well, there doesn't seem to be more comments right now, but I'm sure we will get some after the fact. Oh, wait. Hold on. Kristen just typed something. I have a hard time with the 5-year, 10-year plan because I found my bosses asking these questions more and more. I don't want to seem like I don't have a vision, but I feel like I'm very open to a lot of opportunities and I don't want to restrict myself. How would you work through that? Ooh, Hailey, do you have a response to that?
I do. So my corporate background is out of HR, and us HR folks, like managers, like we just freaking love this stuff and asking these questions of people. What I would do if I were you is, so sometimes people ask these questions because they're supposed to, because you're a manager and that's the thing you're supposed to ask. Ask them what it is they're looking for out of it. Like, so instead of this being a thing where they report it to you, like tell you to do it and you report something back, make this a conversation and ask why 5 or 10 years. You tell me what you're like, why this question, like make it this dialogue, because I think what you'll uncover, like they're looking for something specific when they're asking this. So you can ask them about that, see exactly what they're looking for. Sorry, sometimes HR people are not great. And I'm again in that camp, but like, sometimes we're, like it just seems like a thing you should ask. So I'm going to ask it and not have any real plan around it. And then you can kind of like change the conversation and say, listen, I'm not sure what's going to happen 5 years from now, but I can tell you 1 year from now, this is what I see, and give them as full of a picture as you can so that they know that you've thought about this and they know that you've taken the time to think and to do this work, but in a more realistic paradigm. Like, unless it is deeply a part of what your assessment is going to be, tied to what your paycheck is, like there's no wrong answer to this, and there's no, like, they can't like force you to exactly on 5 years tell me what you think. So that would be my thing, is ask them what they're looking for or why they're asking, and see if you can answer whatever fear or whatever question they're thinking of that prompted that question. And then say, okay, don't know about 5 years, but I can tell you a year from now, this is what I see for myself in this role.
I love that. I also will say, anyone that had a solid 5-year plan up until 1 month ago, probably that ain't the plan no mo.
Right. So it almost is like, what does it matter? But yeah.
No, I mean, again, it's a helpful tool for getting yourself out of the challenges of this moment, right? And being able to think through, if I had endless resources or if I had all these different things, like what would it really look and feel like, to then work backwards into your action plan, like you said, of what do you need to get to that place. I love it. Well, Hailey, thank you so much for sharing with us. I know she shared all the places to connect with Hailey, and we will share them as well, so that everyone on this call knows. We are going to be saving this replay so that if you want to like go back and look through, or if you want to share with others, we're going to be putting this inside the walls of our new Rebelle online community that will be opening very, very soon. So if you are a member, keep a lookout for that invitation. And if you're not, there'll be an opportunity for you to access as well. And we hope that we will see you again. We have another amazing workshop this Thursday. So get in on all this great action. And again, thank you all for being here. Hailey, especially you. I'm so glad we connected.
Me too. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Yay. All right. Bye, y'all. Have a great day. And I don't remember how to turn this off. Okay, I remember now. Bye.